What is up, guys? Cinema Buff, and today we're going to be discussing Episode 7 of Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Now, the last feature-length Star Wars film to come out before this movie was Revenge of the Sith in 2005. 10 years fans had to wait for another episode of Star Wars. And I remember being so hyped. I'm going to tell a little story. So, back in 7th grade in 2015, yeah, I kept hearing that there was so much hype for this movie that a lot of people were saying it's going to be the greatest movie of all time. And as a kid, I never saw what was so good about Star Wars. I never had an interest in it. I knew like a lot of the character names like Luke, Vader, Han Solo, Chewie, etc. I knew that Darth Vader was the father and that there was the Emperor, the idea of lightsabers. That's pretty much all I knew. I had no interest in seeing Force Awakens, and my friends wanted to see it in the theaters. And, they asked me if I wanted to come, and I reluctantly agreed. I'm like, okay. And I saw the film, and I remember being so blown away with the ending, with Luke Skywalker just standing there. I'm like, what? I need to know what happens next. I wanted to know more. I wanted to, get answers to what J.J. Abrams set up in this movie. And so I bought the original Star Wars trilogy and the prequels on the Blu-ray, and I instantly fell in love with Star Wars. The original trilogy will always be definitive Star Wars. They are classics. They told a great story about Luke Skywalker, this little farm boy eventually becoming the hero that saves the galaxy. It's a great story. And even though I didn't really like the prequels as much, I didn't really like episodes 1 and 2, I still appreciated George Lucas for trying something different, for expanding on the world, giving us new technologies, new characters, new ships, etc. And I decided to watch Force Awakens again, having all this in mind, knowing what came before this. And I did not like this movie as much as I thought I would. A lot of people have the same problem in that it was basically just a copy of A New Hope in a lot of ways, and I have to agree. The beginning of the film is literally a Star Destroyer obscuring a planet, and we see stormtroopers trying to get this little piece of information about them that could help the heroes win the war. Wow, because we haven't seen that before. And the enemy group is called the First Order. It's basically just the Empire, and then the heroes are called the Resistance, which is basically just the rebels. And in the beginning, we see, a villain with a black cloak, a black mask, and that distorts his voice, and with a red lightsaber nonetheless. And this piece of information that could help the Resistance, or the Rebels, win the war is hidden in a cute little droid, and he's left to wander on this desert planet, which is Jakku, which is basically just Tatooine. The main character is born on a desert planet nonetheless. She teams up with a comic relief character, a cute droid. She escapes said planet on the Millennium Falcon with Chewie, the original owner of the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo in both movies, and she escapes with an old mentor, Han Solo in Force Awakens and Obi-Wan in A New Hope. And the enemy team has a super weapon that can destroy planets, and it's the size of one. Wow. And the ending of the film is the supposed super weapon being destroyed. And it turns out Kylo is being trained by a mysterious man who, the first time we see him, is in a hologram, just like the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back. And he has old, dry skin, he sounds creepy, and he has a disfigured looking face. The similarities were kind of too big to ignore. So, in the beginning, we see the text crawl, and it says that Luke Skywalker has vanished. Everyone's trying to find where he is. The First Order is trying to look for him. The Resistance is trying to look for him and hoping that he would help them. Princess Leia has been promoted to a general, and she sent the best pilot in the Resistance, Poe Dameron, to talk with an old ally. And who is this old ally? Did we see him in the previous movies? Is he going to matter in the story? Are we going to even care about him later? Yeah, that's what I thought. So this old ally gives Poe a map that leads directly to Luke Skywalker, and BB-8 warns Poe that the stormtroopers are coming, and meanwhile, BB-8 and Poe try to escape on their X-Wing, but the stormtroopers manage to blow it up, and Poe decides to put the piece of information, the map to Luke Skywalker, inside of BB-8 and tells him to go off, run off anywhere into Jakku, anywhere away from here, and Poe decides to stay. Why? It's stupid, and you'll see why later. So we see Poe shoot a stormtrooper, and this other stormtrooper who's later known as Finn, is cradling the other one in his arms. I'm guessing that he was a lifelong friend or something like that. And the dying stormtrooper has his bloody hand, like he scrapes the top of Finn's helmet. And, that scars Finn. And, knowing how serious and bloody this war is. And, this is the first instance where they humanize stormtroopers. Like, they're not just mindless drones, like from Attack of the Clones or the previous movies. No, now they're actual humans with actual human thoughts. I wonder how they'll handle that later. So we see Kylo Ren come in, and I will admit, yeah, he did look similar to Darth Vader, but he actually is different for the most part. He is his own character. I like the cool voice, the little side swords on the red lightsaber, and they do have a practical use as shown later in the film. He says to the Leia's old ally that he knows that the map to Luke Skywalker is here. And the old ally is like, you can't deny your true parentage, like trying to intimidate him. And Kylo does this. Why would you kill him? Think about it. You have no idea Poe's there. He is your only lead to this map. And then we see Poe try to shoot him, and this happens. Now that scene was just awesome. Kylo Ren being able to stop a blaster bolt in midair and stop Poe at the same time, that's just awesome. But there's a problem with this scene. Poe is now the only lead to the map to Luke Skywalker. Kylo Ren killed his only lead, killing Leia's old ally. That makes him pretty stupid. And Poe, because he decided to stay, now Kylo has a lead. What if he ran with BB-8? That way BB-8 wouldn't be captured, as we see later in the film, and he only got out because Rey found him. And, they could have contacted the Resistance somehow, find the ship. Kylo Ren would have no lead. The First Order would be struggling against the Resistance. So basically, the only reason the First Order is a threat in this movie is because of Poe. What the hell was he thinking? Later we see Captain Phasma, and she seems to be the leader of the stormtroopers. I wonder if she's going to be really important in the movie. She instructs the stormtroopers to kill all the survivors, but Finn doesn't. He has a realization, like, this is not what he signed up for. Then we see Rey. And, it shows how her life is boring, how she, finds scraps, tries to sell them for food. She doesn't get as much food as she hoped. She has a pretty boring life. She longs for a different life, beyond this planet. And I like these kind of stories, like seeing how the character's life is so crappy and they eventually get, something better in life. I don't know, it's just a satisfying story to see in a movie. And she comes across BB-8. And, she agrees to take BB-8 in. She's tempted to sell the droid for food, but she decides to keep him. And meanwhile, we see Poe is being interrogated by Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, puts his hand out and Poe is just screaming. I'm like, wait, he used the Force. What exactly did he do? Did he literally crush his skull? Was he squeezing his brain? That's kind of brutal if you think about it. And he finds out that the map is in a droid, a BB unit, and he reports to General Hux, who seems like a copy of General Tarkin. And General Tarkin was a good character. I liked how he, was strategic, he was quick thinking, and that seems to be what Hux is like. And I can't wait to see what they do with this character in the next movie. Supremely. So we see the stormtrooper Finn try to help Poe escape. They get on a TIE fighter and they manage to escape. And Poe says that they have to take out the cannons in order to get very far. And meanwhile, General Hux orders them to shoot the missiles. It hits and they start crash landing. We see Captain Phasma explain to Hux that Finn was trained from birth and that this was his first mission. And later we see Finn wake up on the ground. Later we find out that Poe woke up at night but tried to find Finn. He was unsuccessful, so he tried to contact the Resistance and he managed to successfully do so, as we later find out in this movie. So Finn wakes up trying to rescue Poe, but the TIE fighter sinks into the sand, implying that Poe is dead. Finn manages to get Poe's jacket and he wanders across the desert, dying of thirst, until he eventually comes across civilization, the same city that Rey lives in. How convenient. So Finn meets with Rey and BB-8. Finn says to BB-8 that Poe is dead, and Finn lies that he's in the Resistance. Finn says that BB-8 has a map to Luke Skywalker, and Rey says, Luke Skywalker.
I thought he was a myth.
You thought he was a myth? Wait, this is 30 years after Return of the Jedi. Really? And they're still alive. General Leia's still alive. Han Solo's still alive. Chewie, C-3PO, R2, etc. How is he a myth if, like, they knew him? They fought in the war with him. How is he a myth? Finn sees a bunch of stormtroopers and TIE fighters, and they try running for a ship to get out of here. And Rey is, like, running toward this ship, saying that she can pilot it. Finn is pointing to the right, saying, like, what about that ship? And Rey says, that one's garbage. And the one blows up, and she says, the garbage will do. And it just so happens to be the Millennium Falcon. How convenient. They struggle to pilot the Falcon. You know, Finn is by the gunner. He has trouble controlling the gun. Rey has trouble lifting off. She, like, slides on the sand a little bit. And we take part in this chase scene, and it's really fun seeing them pilot the Falcon while making a few mistakes along the way. One of the TIE fighters managed to jam the gun into forward position, so Rey has to try to find a way to get Finn to shoot down the TIE fighter. So she decides to pull off this amazing maneuver, but before that, she goes through the ruins of a Star Destroyer without crashing into anything, and this is the first time the Millennium Falcon has flown. Finn literally asks,
You ever fly this thing?
No! This ship hasn't flown in years!
so how are you so good at flying it all of a sudden? And then this happens. Are you freaking kidding me? This is the first time she's flown the Millennium Falcon, and she manages to pull that off first try so perfectly. Are you serious? Later, when they're in space, Finn asks, like, how did she do that? And she says, oh, I don't know. I have flown ships before, but I never left the planet. So there's no explanation for this. She's just instantly good. Wow, great character. We see Kylo Ren, like, hear the news about the droid escaping, and he, like, starts destroying this console, and I'll admit, I got a laugh out of that. Eventually, we see a ship stop the Millennium Falcon in its place, and people are trying to enter it, and it just so happens to be convenient. They say that they were tracking the ship for a while, like it's been stolen and then traded from, you know, like, thief to thief, and they managed to get on the Millennium Falcon at this point in time, where two heroes who have the map to Luke Skywalker currently own it. Wow, how convenient. You get where I'm going with this? A lot of the stuff in this movie is just pure convenience. Like, they just happen to, you know, go to this place to the next place by pure luck. Some stuff happens, and then later Han Solo takes a look at the map, and he says that this is only a piece of the map. It doesn't really lead anywhere. And then later they go to this bar. Han Solo says that he has a friend who can take him to the Resistance. Meanwhile, we see Kylo Ren go to Supreme Leader Snoke. And Snoke is not interesting. He is like a copy of Palpatine, only, like, they don't really develop his character. In Return of the Jedi, they didn't really develop, but he had a fun, like, charismatic charm to him. He was fun to watch. And in the prequels, they gave him a backstory. They explained, you know, what made him decide to form a galactic empire. Snoke, well, they don't really develop him in this movie. So I was wondering what they would do in the next movie. And Snoke explains that the heroes are on the Millennium Falcon along with Kylo Ren's father, Han Solo. So Han Solo, Chewie, BB-8, Finn, and Rey, they go to this planet and they go to this bar where there's a bunch of different aliens hanging out, reminiscent of the Mos Eisley Cantina scene from A New Hope. We see a robot spot BB-8, and he speaks on this, like, speaker saying, alert the Resistance. And this other alien who's a spy for the First Order says that, you know, they found the droid, and that leads to this big fight later in the movie. So Han Solo apparently has an old friend who owns the bar, Maz Kanata. Maz tells Han that he should stop running from this war. He should join Leia. And Han says that, you know, no, Leia doesn't want me. In this movie, I feel like they kind of ruined Han Solo's character. It's fun seeing him. You know, Harrison Ford, he's great. He's funny. He's charming. And when he banters with Chewie, it's great. It's funny. And, you know, in the original trilogy, he had an arc. He started off as this thief, this smuggler. He didn't care about anything else except money. He wanted to run away from his problems. He just wanted to solve them quick and just go away. But eventually he learned to care about Luke and Leia, and he eventually saved the day in A New Hope, allowing Luke to destroy the Death Star. He became a military leader for the Rebels. He settled down with Leia. He formed a relationship. But now he seems to just be... They completely undid his character arc. He's now just back to being a smuggler and a thief, and they say, he was so sad, he was so upset that Kylo Ren turned to the dark side, that he abandoned Leia, abandoned the Resistance, only to go back to smuggling and being a thief. Really? That's what you did with his character? Considering what he's gone through, being frozen in carbonite, sold to Jabba, almost being killed multiple times, I'm pretty sure you would have the confidence, to keep going, even though your son is part of the dark side. I mean, look at Luke Skywalker. He found out that his father is the most evil man in the galaxy. He kept on going. He held on to hope. He wanted his father to come back to the light. He convinced his father to come back to the light. I'm pretty sure Han Solo would want to do that too. Finn later reveals that he's not actually with the Resistance. He's just trying to run away from the First Order. That's his character. He keeps running away. Kind of like Han Solo. But eventually, he'll learn to care for others. He'll eventually learn that he needs to stop running away from the problems and face them. Rey hears a noise or an echo coming down from this basement, and she finds Luke's old lightsaber. And she touches it, and apparently it gives her a vision. So, lightsabers can give you visions? That's kind of new. I thought it was just like a typical, sword, like in this sci-fi world. They treat it just as a sword. Anyway, so yeah, she gets visions about Knights of Ren, Luke holding on to R2, seeing a palace burn down, and eventually Maz sees her breathing heavily and explains that the lightsaber was Luke's and his father's before him, but now it calls to her. So lightsabers can call to people now? And aside from that, it's kind of a plot hole. Well, not a plot hole, a mistake bringing Luke's lightsaber back. I mean, it's fun seeing that again, but in Empire Strikes Back, when Darth Vader cuts Luke's hand off, he drops it. And they're in Cloud City. They're above the clouds. It's a gas plant they're in. How did Maz get it? How did she obtain Luke's lightsaber? And they try to explain it later. Well, they don't really give an explanation. Rey says she wants to go back to Jakku because she's constantly waiting for her parents. Earlier we saw that she marked the number of days she was on the planet. She's hoping that they would come back to get her. But Maz, says that, I see the look in your eyes. You already know the truth. They're not coming back. She needs to accept that her parents aren't coming back. And I really this makes Rey really endearing. She longs for her family. She sees a father figure in Han Solo. And she runs away into the forest along with BB-8. So we see the First Order. General Hux is looking over all the stormtroopers and giving this, speech and, trying to empower them. And, people, and it's supposed to compare to, Hitler and Nazis. And it's we kind of get the point. And then they just do this. The stormtroopers just did a salute. It's we got it. And, General Hux is, the actor playing, he's way over the top. It's so cheesy. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw that in theaters. I don't know. So eventually they charge up their super weapon. It's basically another Death Star. And they call it Star Killer Base. A little detail actually. The original name for Luke Skywalker wasn't originally going to be Luke Skywalker. It was going to be Luke Starkiller. I'm not sure if this was deliberate, it was supposed to be a little hint at what George Lucas wanted originally, or if it's just a name they thought of. Either way, I thought that was a nice detail. So, we see Starkiller Base destroy 5 planets instead of 1, and it destroys the entire Republic. There's no Republic anymore. Finn sees this from above and tries to warn Rey, but he realizes that she's gone, so he goes to Maz along with Han Solo and Chewie. Han Solo sees that Maz has Luke's old lightsaber. He asks, "Where did you get that?" And you know what she says?
A good question. For another time.
Many people say that J.J. Abrams, he's one to, set up stuff, introduce interesting ideas, but never finish them. And I'm starting to see that. How is Luke's lightsaber back? It makes no sense. The First Order attack Maz's palace, and eventually we see Finn light up Luke's lightsaber and fight a bunch of stormtroopers, and it's fun. Then we see the stormtrooper yell, "Traitor!" and he throws away his shield and his blaster. I'm like, why? Think about it. Lightsabers can deflect blaster shots, but Finn has never used a lightsaber in his life. So anyway, this stormtrooper pulls out a weapon that can apparently deflect lightsabers. Wow, how convenient. And Finn gets his ass kicked. Han Solo, we see him shooting with stormtroopers. It's fun. Chewie blasting them. We see Han Solo do like a 180 no-scope. I thought that was pretty fun. And then we see the Resistance fighters, including Poe Dameron, a bunch of X-Wings coming to save the day, along with triumphant music playing, and I really like that scene. We see one X-Wing performing all these great maneuvers, blasting all these TIE fighters, and, Finn says, "That's one hell of a pilot." And it turns out it's Poe Dameron. Meanwhile, we see Rey getting captured by Kylo Ren. He says that she's seen the map, and that we can forget about the droid. Again. Why? The droid is on the planet. You know this. You know it's on the planet with her. Yet you insist on taking her. Hux calls him out for this. It doesn't make it better. It makes him seem like a dumbass. So Han, Chewie, and Finn go to the Rebel base. Well, not Rebel base. The Resistance base in the Outer Rim. And we see Princess Leia and C-3PO. It's fun seeing them together. And, it's awkward between Han Solo and Leia because they split up. And BB-8 finds R2-D2 just sitting there, deactivated. C-3PO says that he's never been the same ever since Master Luke left. It's also explained that Luke Skywalker, he was training a new generation of Jedi, and Ben Solo turned. And as a result, Ben Solo killed a bunch of his students, and a bunch of his students turned as well. He felt responsible and decided to banish himself on this planet called Ahch-To. Later, we see that planet at the end of this movie, and throughout the course of The Last Jedi. We see Kylo trying to interrogate Rey, but Rey is resisting, and, she says that you're afraid that you'll never be as good as Darth Vader. And I really like that detail. Like Kylo Ren, he's following in Darth Vader's footsteps. He sees him as an inspiration, but eventually in Last Jedi, he lets go of that, becomes his own character. That's one thing I would say that I really like about The Last Jedi. Like Kylo Ren, he becomes his own character. Like he, doesn't want to be known as another Darth Vader. I really like that. Kylo explains to Snoke that she's strong with the Force, and General Hux comes in, as I said earlier, saying that Kylo Ren felt like we didn't need the girl. Snoke says that we need to activate the super weapon and destroy the Rebel base. We see the Rebels discuss, the super weapon, and people are saying, basically, this is another Death Star. And Poe's like, no, that's not the case. This was the Death Star. This is Starkiller Base. Like, it's so much bigger, like 5 times bigger. And Han Solo says, so what? It's big. How do we blow it up? There's always a way to blow it up. This scene is basically the writers admitting, yes, we are reusing the Star Wars plot. This is basically just another Death Star. It really doesn't make it better, like that you're, playing it as a joke. I don't know. So anyway, Finn says he was on Starkiller Base. He knows how it works. Apparently there's an oscillator on the planet. And if you destroy that, you destroy the whole ship. We see General Akbar, and he says that the Starkiller Base gets its energy from the sun that's nearby. It eventually drains the sunlight away and uses that energy to destroy planets. And it turns out the Starkiller Base is being protected by a force field. So Chewie, Han, and Finn go to find a way to deactivate the shield, and once they do, the Resistance will come in and try to take it down. Eventually they make it, and Han Solo asks, how does Finn know any of this? Did he work on any of it? And Finn's like, no, I was in sanitation. And Finn's like, don't worry, we'll just use the Force. And we get this little funny line from Han Solo.
That's not how the Force works.
And, Chewie blasts the stormtrooper. It's really funny.
Hey!
And we get reintroduced to Captain Phasma. They hold her at gunpoint, telling her to lower the shields, and then they decide to throw her down a trash compactor. Really? She was only in the movie for 2 to 3 minutes. They built her up to be so important. Hey, maybe they'll develop her character in the next movie. We see Rey escape using a Jedi mind trick. Now, at first glance, this scene is okay. She fails like the first 2 times, but then she successfully does it the third time. She says, you will remove these restraints and leave the cell door open, and you will drop your weapon. And, the stormtrooper does that, and we see Kylo Ren, like, throw a temper tantrum. Yeah, that's his character now. He throws temper tantrums. Like, he's destroying the room. He's yelling, "Guards!" And, like, 2 guards just back up. It's funny. I will admit, it is funny. I did get a laugh out of it. Think about this. With Rey, she has never used the Force in her life. She heard of the Jedi in myth. How does she know about this ability? Her first time successfully using it. And it doesn't really make any sense. With Luke in A New Hope, remember when he had to shoot the torpedoes into the thermal exhaust port leading directly to the core of the Death Star? That was a 1 in a million shot. He almost died. The only reason he successfully did it was because Han Solo saved the day. And when Luke did it, he had a surprised look on his face. Like he was surprised it actually worked. Like if he missed, that was the end. The rebel base would have been destroyed. And, the rebels would have lost. So Rey bumps into Finn, Han, and Chewie, and Rey is surprised to see Finn. He didn't just run away, he came back for her. Eventually, we see this space battle take place, and it's really fun to watch, seeing the Resistance fighting First Order TIE fighters. It's really fun to watch. Han, Chewie, and Finn decide to place a bunch of grenades around the oscillator, trying to blow it up for the rebels, allowing them to do more damage. And we see Kylo Ren along this bridge. Han Solo decides to confront him. They have this endearing moment, and Adam Driver's performance is really good. He has so much confidence within him. He says, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should do this. Like, I need your help to do so. And he kills Han Solo. Really? You bring Han Solo back. The last time we see him, the last time we saw Han Solo was in Return of the Jedi, 1983. 32 years later, we see Han Solo. And you just brought him back to kill him. You ruined his character, and now you have to kill him. That's great. Finn, Rey, and Chewie are obviously upset. Chewie shoots Kylo Ren, but they manage to escape. They blow up the oscillator, allowing the rebels to do more damage. And eventually we get to this lightsaber battle between Finn and Kylo Ren. Kylo knocks Rey out, and Finn takes place in this battle, and it's really fun. The side blades on Kylo's lightsaber, like when he gets close to Finn, it cuts Finn's shoulder. I like that it has a practical use. It's not just there to sell more toys. Finn gets beaten. Eventually the lightsaber gets knocked out of his hand, and Kylo Ren slices Finn's back with the lightsaber and knocks him out. What's going to happen to Finn? Rey wakes up and she uses the Force to grab the lightsaber. We hear the music from the moment where Luke is staring at the 2 suns playing, and eventually they take part in a lightsaber battle. Eventually Kylo Ren says that you need a teacher. I can show you the ways of the Force. Kylo Ren is beating Rey, but then Rey literally just closes her eyes, and instantly she has the power to beat Kylo Ren. She beats Kylo Ren, cuts him in the face with a lightsaber. Think about it. She's a scavenger. She was born on a desert planet, lived there for her whole life. She has heard of the Jedi in myth. She never knew that they existed. This is her first time using the Force, using a lightsaber, and the first time she fights against a trained Jedi, she wins. What happened to Luke when he did that in Empire Strikes Back? When he decided to fight Darth Vader for the first time? He lost. That's the only logical outcome. He rushed into it. He learned from his mistakes. That is a well-written character. The problem with Rey is that her character is kind of poorly written. She advances, she progresses without any real struggle. The Millennium Falcon comes in and saves Finn and Rey, and we see the rebels, well, mainly Poe Dameron, blow the whole Starkiller base up. And as they said, he's the best pilot in the Resistance. And the Starkiller base blows up. Hux manages to escape, and Snoke says it's time to complete Kylo Ren's training. All the rebels are celebrating, but Leia and Rey are mourning Han's death, well, including Chewie as well. R2-D2 just turns on. That's it. He literally just turns on out of nowhere. And, C-3PO sees him, and it's just heartwarming to see them back together again after about 30 years. Well, technically 10. We saw him in Revenge of the Sith. R2-D2 says that he has the entire map leading to Luke Skywalker, but there's a piece missing, the one that BB-8 has. So they complete the map, and they realize that Luke Skywalker's on this planet called Ahch-To. Rey goes in the Millennium Falcon with R2-D2 and Chewie. She goes off to Ahch-To, and eventually she makes it, and we see Luke Skywalker. He unveils his hood and turns around. Rey is handing him his lightsaber, and the film ends there. And that's The Force Awakens. Not a perfect movie. In my opinion, it's not bad. It's an enjoyable Star Wars movie, but in my opinion, it's not necessarily a good one either. The similarities with A New Hope are, jarring. Some of the characters are pretty interesting. J.J. Abrams set up some pretty interesting characters. Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo. I wanted to see more. I wanted to know, what were their backstories? What made them who they were? And, that task was left to Rian Johnson, and we all know how that went. The action set pieces are really good. There's some minor things here and there that I didn't really like, but overall, it's an enjoyable Star Wars movie. I would give it a 6 out of 10.